Most students ask me, how do I write a good introduction? They get feedback from their lecturers in their assignments. Improve your introduction, or could have written a better introduction than this. But they do not know exactly how to write an introduction. It's an important piece of any academic assessment task. Now, today I'm going to try and simplify the introduction. What does an introduction take? What are the key features of a good introduction? Now, I've what I call the OPS strategy, or the OPS orientation, whatever you want to name it. But it is O stands for overview, P for purpose, S for structure. Those are the three components of a good introduction. Let's start with an overview. What is the purpose of an overview? An overview gives a general flavor of the subject of discussion. Before you dig into the detail, into the specifics of the subject that you want to talk about, your reader wants to be given an overview, a taster, so they have an idea, an inkling of what is to follow in that piece of writing. This could be a brief historical overview of the subject that you are going to talk about, or a general outlook of the subject, and so on and so forth. The overview also serves another purpose, that is to reveal the importance or significance of the topic. And then you move on to P for purpose. Now, the purpose informs the reader of the purpose or the aim or the objective or the focus of your piece of writing. It is important that your reader knows what it is that you aim to achieve with the writing that you are going to present in front of them, the writing that you are trying to produce, the message that you're trying to produce. What is the purpose of it? What is the end goal? What is the aim? It informs the reader or the marker of that aim, objective or purpose of the account. This could be expressed in more than one sentence. It depends. You may have three objectives or three aims. If you are good with your English language, you can actually say it in a sentence, even though you may have 2, 3, 4 sentences, or 2, 3, 4 aims that you want to express within that one sentence. Right? Everything is condensed. So you may have 4 sentences condensed into one sentence. It is possible, but it depends on your writing style. It depends on how you wish to express yourself, how confident you are in the language you are writing in. Then you move on to the structure. The structure part of an introduction is where you are telling your reader how the work is structured. What is it that the reader should expect first? What is it that the reader should expect next? And what is it that the reader should expect last? So you have those 3 components, right? I will go over it again. You have the overview to give a general flavor of what it is that you are writing about. And then you have the purpose that tells the reader of the aim, the purpose, the goal, or the objective of your writing. And then you have the structure component, which signposts the reader on what it is that starts, what it is that comes next, and what it is that comes last. Right. So let's look at an example, a good example from the University of Leeds that I want to share with you. So what you have here is an introduction. I will talk to you about the introduction later, but let's first of all read together what the introduction says. It is, I'll read. That's just an example that is from the University of Leeds, like I said, right? By its very nature, much of policing is controversial and conflictual. Newben, 2005, page 525, full stop. This can be seen in the major debate on race and racism that has permeated contemporary British policing from the 80s to the present, featuring heavily in popular media and political debates. The growing interest in the position of ethnic minority groups in relation to the criminal justice system increased when it was brought to light that they did not receive treatment equivalent to their white counterparts. This was revealed in a number of high-profile cases, leading to public concern over whether racism operated at the individual level or whether it was embedded in the policies and practices of the police. Easton and Piper, 2005. In this period, two significant inquiries were carried out: the Scullman Report and the Macpherson Report, investigating and probing police procedures to determine if or where racism was present in the system. While some progress has been made since these two inquiries were carried out, many improvements still need to be made to overcome institutional racism. These two inquiries will provide focus by which to critically analyze the concept of institutional racism in policing and evaluate the policy responses to it. Firstly, the relations between the police and minorities will be considered in the context of history through the Brixton riots, which triggered the Scullman inquiry, and the death of Stephen Lawrence that led to the Macpherson inquiry. Secondly, the concept of institutional racism will be analyzed. Thirdly, the Stephen Lawrence case and the recommendations Macpherson presented to create change in policies will be examined. Finally, policy responses to the inquiries will be evaluated. Now, there are those three components I talked about at the beginning. You have the overview, which begins by just stating generally the nature of policing and how controversial it is. In fact, this particular student begins with a quote. I don't tend to encourage it. It works sometimes, other times it doesn't. But in this particular instance, it seems to work. At least that's the view of the University of Leeds. Now, the overview starts here. By its very nature, much of policing is controversial and conflictual. Newben, 2005, page 525. This can be seen in major debate on race and racism that has permeated contemporary British policing from the 80s to the present, featuring heavily in popular media and political debates. The growing interest. Now, when the author starts to talk about the growing interest, they're still giving the overview, but they're now moving into the realm of what is the significance of this topic. When you start talking about the interest in an area or the significance of that particular area you're writing about, or the importance of the subject or the topic that you are writing about, you are signaling to the reader that this topic is important, this topic is drawing interest, and therefore it is important, it is worth reading, it is worth marking. Okay? So that's where it begins to get interesting. So it says the growing interest in the position of ethnic minority groups in relation to the criminal justice system increased when it was brought to light that they did not receive treatment equivalent to their white counterparts. This was revealed in a number of high-profile cases. Now, just trying to back that initial observation that there's that interest, that it is a significant topic, it is an important topic to talk about, to consider, to pay attention to focus on. This was revealed in a number of high-profile cases, leading to public concern over whether racism operated at an individual level or whether it was embedded in the policies and practices of the police. Easton and Piper, 2005. In this period, two significant inquiries, again, that word, the word that signifies significance, a word that signals to the to the reader that this is a significant topic, and also it's citing inquiries that are significant. Right. In this period, two significant inquiries were carried out: the Scarman report and the Macpherson report, investigating and probing police procedures to determine if or where racism was present in the system. While some progress has been made since these two inquiries were carried out, many improvements still need to be made to overcome institutional racism. Now, that's the overview. It's got a bit more detail than probably I would recommend for say 5,000 word assignments, but it's still okay. It is still a good overview. It's provided the background. It is also argued why the work is important. The topic is worth focusing on. And then the next part is the purpose, right? Or the aim. The two inquiries will provide a focus by which to critically analyze the concept of institutional racism in policing and evaluate the policy responses to it. That's the sentence that tells us the aim. In fact, there's more than one aim there. But this writer, this student, skillfully puts all or condenses all the objectives or aims into one very brief or succinct or concise sentence. Okay, so we've looked at the overview, which is a bit lengthy, and then you've looked at the purpose, which is one sentence, which is very simple, but the purpose is there. The last part, which I talked about earlier on, is the structure part. That's where the author, this student, begins by, firstly, the relations between the police and minorities will be considered in the context of history through the Brixton riots, which triggered the Scarman inquiry, and the death of Stephen Lawrence that led to the Macpherson inquiry. Secondly, the concept of institutional racism will be analyzed. Thirdly, the Stephen Lawrence case and the recommendations Macpherson presented to create change in policies will be examined. Finally, police responses to the inquiries will be evaluated. So you can see there illustrated in a very clear manner the overview, the purpose, the structure, OPS. Overview, purpose, structure. That is how you write an effective introduction. I look forward to chatting with you online, and I hope you find this useful. Please practice this on different subjects and try and use different styles of writing and different compositions of this particular style or of this particular common feature, very important feature of academic writing. It is important that you practice this because they say practice makes perfect.